Yeah! Welcome to another episode of the Racer X Exhaust Podcast, brought to you by Yoshimura, 63 years of four-stroke research and development, engine parts, complete race motors, exhaust systems, and the stuff is made right here in the United States of America. I'm Jason Weigandt, your host. It is an annual tradition. We leave Anaheim 1, and one man stands undefeated. It's the only time of the year a rider can truly be on top to that level, even if a rider wins a title, unless he goes 24-0 like Carmichael did or Stewart did once. You're not going to be able to say you're undefeated, even if you're the champion. Some other person took some victories away from you. But right now, Justin Barcia, 1-0. He has not lost a race this year. And there is no other race in the sport that gets the kind of post-race chatter that Anaheim 1 does. Maybe if Team USA struggles at the Motocross of Nations, that might equal it. But right now, there has been so much talk, so much hype, so much buzz on Anaheim 1. And congrats to Justin Barcia. He's the one that gets to soak in it right now. We know year after year we are told it's just one race. Don't read too much into it. It doesn't mean anything. But it's impossible to not get pumped before and right after Anaheim 1. So to get a little bit of perspective on it, this is cool. Feld Motor Sports, who puts the Monster Energy Supercross Championship together, brought out ex-Anaheim winners to talk to the press along with the current riders. So they had 14 riders who are essentially retired. They had Josh Grant there. He's not officially retired, but he's not racing right now. So he was in the group of former winners. And then there were 4 other riders, I believe, if I have this right, who are still racing, who have also won Anaheim before. So you had 18 riders on hand who have experienced winning Anaheim, most of them winning the season opener. A few of them actually won Anaheims when it wasn't the opening round of the season. But they've all been through this drill. How much hype is going on before the race, and then how to try to bring yourself back to the ground, whether you perform well there or perform badly, how to try to block that out and just set Anaheim 1 aside. So we're going to get some perspective from some real veterans here. Ran around as much as I could during the limited time we had on press day to get some perspective on it. We talked to Rick Johnson, Johnny O'Mara, Jeff Ward, Jeremy McGrath, and Ricky Carmichael about Anaheim and when they were a part of the electricity there. First, a shout out to ourselves, Racer X. You can go to racerxbrand.com. Be smart. Go to racerxbrand.com, just like Justin Brayton did, and purchase the podcast shirt. Now, if you're really cool like Brayton, and we know he's the coolest, he did not even use the exhaust discount code. He paid the full price, and I appreciate that. He even subscribed to Racer X Illustrated because Brayton knows that everything in the magazine is exclusive to the magazine, and you cannot see it online. He told me he subscribed because he knew the content was different. We have a new issue that is dropping seriously today, I think. We've got a whole bunch of really cool features in there. I'll run it down. We have a story on MotoGP champion Marc Marquez and how much he loves riding motocross. I've got a story on Ryan Sipes. Davey Coombs did a great story on Chad Reed. We have a Brayton story in there about all of his cross-transatlantic, trans-Pacific travels throughout the offseason. We have an ISDE story in there. Also an interview with the guy from Gas Monkey Garage and why he decided to sponsor a Supercross team. So check out the new issue. Easy. Go to racerxonline.com/subscribe. You can get it digitally. You can get it in the mailbox. It's cheap for what you're getting, and it's all exclusive. So anyway, Brayton was smart enough to buy all those things. If you want to do it as well, if you want to go to racerxbrand.com and buy a shirt or a hat or something like that, it's cool. You can use the exhaust discount code. Just type in exhaust in all capital letters. We'll save you some money. I mean, Brayton is so rich from winning all these races last year all over the world. He doesn't need the discount code. People like me, people like you, we need that. All right, let's go. Podcast. 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 Podcast, 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 podcast. Yeah, let's get this episode really underway. First stop, Rick Johnson, who won the event in 1989, they officially said, but he also won the Anaheim Supercross in 1988. Odd footnote, it does not necessarily appear in some of the record books because in 88 there was this massive promoter conflict going on between Mickey Thompson and Mike Goodwin. It did not end well. But Thompson had gained control of the Anaheim off-road events, which included Supercross, but the Anaheim Supercross that he ran that year did not count for points in the AMA Supercross Championship. It was the same stadium, same riders, same type of track they always have. Johnson won it. I don't know if it appears in the record book. He won the 1988 Anaheim Supercross. Let's start with the always outspoken RJ, and then we'll talk to O'Mara and Ward, McGrath, and Carmichael. Enjoy. Let's talk the pomp and circumstance of Anaheim. Rick Johnson, you won in 88 and 89. I'm surprised you didn't win like 10 of these because I feel like you're on top for a while.
I was close.
You were in 86 for sure. What was the experience like Anaheim won in the opener compared to every other Supercross?
Well, you come to Anaheim and there's so much pressure. And you're wondering what everyone's done. When you get to ride against your guys. I got to race against Brock and Ronnie on the test track. Or when I had Johnny and David, which those guys destroyed me at Honda Land because that was their track. You kind of know where you're at, but you don't know what Wardy's doing. You don't know what the different guys are doing. And so when you get here, it's always a little different. I always found that my suspension needed to be 5% stiffer just because the tracks were wet. We didn't water our tracks back then. But the pressure of, I got to get out of here safe. And so you want to win so bad because there's so much hype. There's all this going on. Always a packed house and stuff like that. But I kind of got to the point where I was like, if I could leave here healthy with the top 5, the championship is within my grasp. Because, 5, 10, 15, 20 points at the first round is the same as the last round. So you can't screw around at the beginning. And honestly, it's kind of bullshit what these guys are all talking about. Well, I'm going to do what I can. No. This is a street fight, 100%. From when the gate falls until you get to the finish line, you're anaerobic going as fast as you can. This isn't like Days of Thunder where it's, well, I'm going to go now. Bullshit. They go as fast as they can 100% of the time and find out if their lungs or if their chassis and their tire was off a little bit and make that adjustment.
How different would it be then when you get to that race day? Did it feel different than when you're at the track? And your tracks weren't prepped, like you said, like this. But when you're in race situation, does everything ratchet up compared to the 3 months prior?
Oh, absolutely. It doesn't matter how much you practice and how hard you train and how hard you push your heart with your heart rate monitor and all the different stuff. When you get here, you have all of these distractions. Everything from the dirt looks different, the jumps are different, the sizing's different. I'm making adjustments. I have all these people wanting to give me everything right now. It's like, leave me alone right now. Let me just focus. You got tire guys. What do you need? You need to go up a pound, down a pound. Shot guys, motor guys, Honda, your manager, your parents, your family, your friends, everybody wanting you to win. And so you got to have a way to avoid all of that pressure and just show up and be the best that you can be. And if that's good enough, then you win. If not, make that adjustment for the following week and keep moving.
If or when you do win, though, how do you get yourself back down to earth on Monday and not feel like we got this?
Well, back in the day, you used to go get your prize money. You'd walk right over to the corner. There'd be an AMA trailer. They'd give you your $6,000. I think it's the same prize money, which is bullshit. They need to bump that up to like $60,000 just for the purse, not the bonuses. Anyways, I remember I'd be the last one signing autographs. Everyone would be gone. Drunk people would want to fight and all different stuff. Then I'd walk down. I'd get my AMA card back. I'd get my prize money. And I'm like, this is it. Nobody's here. They're pushing dirt around. They're getting ready for a monster truck race or a Mickey Thompson race back in the day. And it was over. So when the checker flag falls, you have that moment while you're in the stadium to embrace it and enjoy it. As soon as you leave the stadium, it's over. You're starting to hydrate. You're starting to get ready. You're making the next game plan. Mm-hmm. Was I fast in corners? Was I good in jumps? My starts, were they good or did they suck? So you have that night to enjoy it and then move on because it's over.
That's awesome. Perfect.
And you're on.
We've got Johnny O'Mara and Jeff Ward here, former winners of the Anaheim Supercross. Now, what's funny, I can never understand with you two. You were like rivals, but it seems like friends at the same time. Different teams, oftentimes titles came down to just one or the other. But you seem to keep it fairly cool. How did that work back then? How did it not turn to fisticuffs? I'll start with you, Johnny.
Well, I think it almost did turn into fist steel at times, but only because of our competitive nature. I always say that Jeff and I, as we were older and our careers are behind us as far as this stuff goes, we were always just making each other better. We just wanted the same thing, and that was being number one, best in the world. So we literally, I know I had a lot of respect for him, and I think he'd say the same thing, but also we just had that killer instinct that was like, I literally would just think about Jeff Ward nonstop, and it was like borderline unhealthy. But that's literally, I believe, how the best guys are. Like, I really believe that's how they are. When they want to win that bad, they'll think like that.
And we know with you guys, it never goes away. Like, you're still a training animal. You're still a racing and training guy. So, yeah, what is that like when there's someone you want to beat so bad? And maybe it turns a little personal, but it's really a competition thing.
Yeah, I mean, that's what gets you up in the morning. It's like, what's he doing today, and trying to do more, and just the competitiveness. Both of us, like you said, we were tooth and nail there for 2 or 3 years, and then, I think once we got our championships and we settled in, but then there was somebody else that came in and we almost didn't have to worry about each other so much. There was 2 other guys that were now we're fine, but we were still in the mix. So it kind of there's always somebody that you put up there in your mind that you just gotta dig deep every week and put as much as you can in, and then we became teammates, and like you said, our lives were so entwined of every day, everything we did for I don't know how many years. So we had so much in common that it was inevitable that we would get together and reminisce. RJ, everybody. And that'll be the same for these guys when they're done. Right now, everybody's straight-faced, and then when they get done, it'll be like they'll remember stuff that they didn't think about back there. That was really cool.
And what is the Anaheim experience like? What is it like to go to round 1 with all that hype and all that anticipation, 3 or 4 months of prepping, and then it all comes down to one race to see what actually worked and what didn't? What is that experience like?
Yeah, there's a lot to go into it with injuries, just how much time you get in the bike. And I mean, you can come in here 100% feeling you're the fastest guy, and then you go out to practice and you just go, uh-oh, because there's other guys that are just as fast. And then it's all of a sudden a rethinking thing. And like Jason Anderson with the championship, if you're focused on that and just riding to your ability, you're going to be up front, and then just accept whatever challenge or who it is at that time and go from there. You can't just pick out one person like, I got to worry about him, because sometimes that never happens. So, this is always a tough race because it is the first one. Like, everybody doesn't want to have a bad race, so it's maybe the guy that's a little bit more of the underdog that's not thinking that so much, that rides a little bit looser and a little more aggressive. But I always enjoyed coming here. Like Johnny and I were talking, I only won it once, and it's kind of crazy that we've been in the hunt so many times and only came in one time. So, but it's a good event.
You won, Anaheim won, and then you went on to win the title one time. And how hard is it to, when you win the first race, get back down on your feet and say, look, I won the opener, but that doesn't mean anything. I've got to get back to work. What is that feeling like to rebound from winning and then go back to work on Monday and get ready for the rest of the series?
Well, I think when I look back to my one win, I would think I was third and then second, then I won Anaheim 1. For me, like, it was just a validation. Like, I just kind of, almost sense it as an athlete that when your time is. So, like, I just knew that was my year, and obviously I wasn't stupid. I know things could happen, but it just put like validation that this is my year. So I'm just going to capitalize on that, make the least amount of mistakes, win as many races as I could, and not make any mistakes.
So having that confidence from winning that race and a great offseason, that actually does carry through, at least in your championship year.
Well, I believe so. Yeah, winning always does that. So like, I can't just say like, someone's just going to win one race here and not help you in the season.
Right.
Do I think you have to win Anaheim 1? No. But I did, and there's a few guys that went on to win the championship. But like, for me, it was just a validation. Like, it just was my time. Where do you probably say that? Bailey, any of the last generation guys like that. It really is just a validation stamp that, all right, cool, I did so many days of riding, and I paid my price. Paid the dues, really, that's what I'm saying.
One last thing for you guys. When you won here, I think they could fit like 70-some thousand people in this building. It's not nearly that big anymore. How loud was it? How crazy was it? And for a lot of you guys, this was also a home race in a way because you're Southern California guys. What was that like, the noise and the fans?
I get that question a lot. I think we're so in tune with what we're doing out there, we don't really hear much. And I know these guys don't hear it now. They all wear earplugs. So like, when I'm talking to some rider, I'm like, I can't talk like we are now. I have to yell at them.
Yeah.
Like, huh? They all wear earplugs. So like, sure, like, if you're passing someone or something like that, and you knew you're up in the lead or up there, like podium, up there that far up, you knew it was maybe you, but I think we're so focused we don't even really notice, to be honest.
They're just here to race. They're here to race. Forget about the rest. All right, Jeremy McGrath, the king of Supercross and multi-time winner here at Anaheim 1, but oddly, not always. There were some years where you started and it was like, wait a minute, he got 7. What's going to happen? So talk about the connection between Anaheim 1 and the whole season. Is it everything? Is it not everything? Because you've had both scenarios.
Well, it seems, in my mind, it was always pretty connected, right?
Okay.
Because at least you want to come to this race. I mean, I always wanted the hype of Anaheim for me was always like a confidence builder.
Okay.
And so I was always feeling like, man, if I could get out of here with a win, then it would set the stage for the rest of the series. And at least mentally for me, I was like, oh, all right, I'm going to smoke everyone, and that's how it's going to go.
Okay.
But I think, originally Anaheim was never 3 races or 2 races. It was just 1 race. So
yep. It wasn't always
the
the opener in your years.
It wasn't
either.
always the opener.
Yeah.
I think 2 years it was in Orlando.
Yeah.
But I mean, Anaheim's always really special, and thank God, because the year I won Anaheim my first time in '93, Orlando was first, and I went 4th, 5th, and then 1st. So I went Orlando, Houston, Anaheim, and I needed those couple races to figure out, how to win or if I could win and all that. So, but Anaheim always has that special feeling, There's a lot of guys that kind of crack under the hype of Anaheim. I mean, this is where the manufacturers are, and this is where, for me, I always thrived on it because this is my home race, so I wanted to win in front of my home fans and my family and everyone else. So, it's always special to me, but there's a lot of hype that goes with this race.
Well, yeah, but every year we had this press conference, and we weren't doing that all the time when you were winning, but everybody says, why don't the riders just talk trash? And I'm like, well, if there's one guy that ever could, that had backed it up for years, it's you. But even you, I don't feel like, came into the opener spraying all this, I'm going to dominate. Why not? Why wouldn't you do that? What is the reason the riders don't do it?
Well, I think for one, these guys, before the races start, right, we have no results yet, right?
Yes.
So they all have to have some bit of humility, right?
Okay.
I mean, and I was scared too, even if I'd won 50 races going into this race, I was scared to be talking trash like that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, of course, if I was confident, I would just keep it inside. I mean,
Okay.
I would let my riding speak for itself, at least for a while until I got going.
Okay.
And that's the beauty of Anaheim, right? We're at race 1. There's no results. We don't really know what's going to happen. We can sit here and, I think we've probably tried to predict several of these races, and we've all failed at it.
Yes.
So, that's the best part about Anaheim is nobody knows exactly what's going to happen. I mean, we'd all like to think that we were going to be the winner, but as you can see, I won it several times, but there was plenty of times I didn't.
Would it add more pressure, in fact? If you come in here and say, I'm going to dominate the opener, would that just make you more nervous, or any rider more nervous, if you say that the day before the race? Is that part of the reason?
Look, there's years I felt like there's no way anyone could beat me, and I probably still didn't say that up there.
Right,
You know what
that's
I mean?
what I'm saying, yeah.
The one that was probably the most scary that we can recall in recent history was Roxon when he came in here. Like, that seemed like he added pressure to his whole game.
Yes.
Which, I don't know. I even as dominant as I was at this race or at any race, I don't think I could have. I don't think I would have done that. But
You weren't rocking the suit.
yeah, I wasn't. I mean, I don't know. Maybe later, if I would have thought about something as cool as that, I might have tried it. But I don't know. I would save all the antics for the last race, right? When the championship was done, I'd done the blue hair. It was like all the goofy stuff. It would be at the end of the races, end of the series when I already won the championship.
That's probably the safe way.
Yeah, I'd go
to
the
do it.
safe route.
Okay, right on. We were in an odd situation. We were actually here to talk about Ricky Carmichael about not winning something. Did not ever win.
Never.
Anaheim won.
Never.
So I talked to Jeremy McGrath earlier, and I said, is there a connection? And Johnny O'Mara, is there a connection between winning the opener and does that carry into the whole series? Apparently for you, it doesn't. So how did that work for you?
Well, it worked good for me because I never wanted to win Anaheim.
What?
My goal once I learned how to win championships at the elite level is I just wanted to get out of here and just maximize my points. If the win was there, I would take it. But everyone rides good all the time, but it seems like they bring a little bit extra to this particular event.
Okay.
And my goal, I know it sounds kind of boring, but my goal is just to get out of here, at least on the box.
Okay, every year we had this press conference up here. You used to be in it. Now you're asking questions as a member of the media, and everybody gets mad. Why don't the riders talk more trash? Now, look, you were great, but I don't remember you coming up here and talking trash. Why doesn't anyone do it, even if they have credentials like yours?
I don't know. Who knows? I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I wish they would. You know, but I think that the riders get along a lot more now than in my day. So that might be why they don't talk trash. And it's new. Everyone's trying to come in with a positive attitude, which I appreciate. We'll see how the positive attitudes are, and maybe the trash talking will start
when they
in
start
a couple
racing.
Weeks.
Yeah,
that's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I always say this. Like, I used to host these press conferences in your day. It was so tense between you and Chad and James and Kevin would get in there. I mean, it was cut with a knife. There was no camaraderie back in those days. It was for the throat. It was a lot different, it seemed.
Yeah, it's a lot different. I mean, we didn't talk to anybody. You know, you'd be Chad Reed, I'd be myself.
Yeah.
We'd be making our gates, preparing our gates, and just wouldn't even look at you, talk to you. Nothing. I don't think I talked to him the whole season.
Really?
Yeah, one season probably. So, but now we're great friends, and I'm a huge fan and wanting to do the best.
When you did win Anaheim, you didn't win Anaheim 1, but you won plenty of other events here. This isn't your home race, but it is still a big one for the industry. So what is it like to win in this stadium?
It's special to win in the stadium because this is where all the manufacturers are and all the big bosses are here. It's like winning Daytona also. You know, all the big bosses are there, so it's special. I just never was able to get it done.
But it didn't bother you?
Didn't bother me. I accomplished my goal when I came here, except 2002.
Yeah, that was no good.
When I went over, that wasn't good. I let my ego get in the way in 2005. I had a massive lead with, 4 laps into the race. I'm like, dude, I want to lap the field. As soon as I did that, I hit the deck. So
the mud race?
Yeah.
Really? You were thinking, I want to stop
I think I can lap the field tonight.
Wow.
And I always tried to race like with a humble mentality, like I could get beat at any point. And the one time that I didn't, it bit me in the ass.
That's to learn. That's good
That's
stuff.
what I get.
Thanks. All right, so those are former Anaheim winners, not necessarily all Anaheim 1 winners, and their perspective on this race. O'Mara reigning supreme with confidence. He expected it to be his year. It was his year, and he believed it all season long. McGrath never lacked confidence. He knew how good he was in Supercross. For everyone else, even someone like Rick Johnson, who truly believed in himself, and I think that was one of his greatest assets. Even he sometimes overwhelmed by the hype of Anaheim and decided it might be better to just get some points here. And Carmichael the same way. So let's talk a little bit about Anaheim 2019 that we just saw. Clearly, Justin Barcia is aware of the same things that the riders you just heard are aware of. Barcia had not won a Supercross race since 2013. And he's winning what you would argue is the most hyped Supercross race of the year. Oh, by the way, in that 6-year span since he's won, he had lost his factory ride. And he even had naysayers like me saying he would never get back to his old level. He heard a lot of crap from a lot of people for a long time. So it would be so tempting when you win on the grandest stage of all to go nuts. Just let all those emotions come out, to cry, to scream and yell, to say, I told you so. But this was about as subdued as I have ever seen Barcia after a race. I don't mean just a race win. I don't know if I've ever seen Barcia this humble, no matter what the result is. And I've got to imagine that he is well aware to not let the Anaheim 1 thing get to him. Bobby Hewitt told me when Jason Anderson won this race 2 years ago, it was terrible. There was so much focus and attention. He was being pulled in so many ways. It was actually a bad thing. He actually said it wasn't even good when Anderson won in the 250 class a couple of years before that. Carmichael, you heard him say he didn't really want to win the opener. I remember way back Ezra Lusk in 1999 wishing he had not won Anaheim 1. It's just even more pressure and more people looking at you to back it up in round 2, and then there's a lot more media obligations and things like that. I think if you're someone like McGrath, who was winning all the time, it wasn't a game changer when you won the race. It didn't all of a sudden change everyone's perspective on you so you could handle that. But in the case of Barcia, it would be very easy to have this completely screw up your week. So I believe he's trying to just treat this like any other race, any other win, any other place. It was really interesting to see Barcia in the post-race press conference act so nonchalant about it. And I don't mean it in an arrogant way, like, of course I won. I just mean in a, I got to be humbled by this and not let it get to my head. Ken Roczen finished second. I think that's actually good for Roczen, and he might even say that second is better than a win in this situation. Because even Roczen, who wants the spotlight much more so than most of these other riders, he's a natural-born celebrity, a natural-born superstar. He's comfortable in that position. That's why he wears the suit to Anaheim 1 and takes on all the attention that comes with it. even Roczen, who's supremely confident, he had to deal with a huge media circus at Anaheim last year, and I think it was even too much for him. I mentioned this on last week's podcast. For him to be a little bit more low profile and under the radar, and he did it perfectly. He got second, so he nearly scored maximum points, but he doesn't have to deal with all of that. I mean, if Roczen had won Anaheim 1, can you imagine what would be going on right now? First of all, the stadium went nuts when he took the lead and won his heat race, and they were riveted with every pass that he made in the main. If he had won that race, the crowd response would have been awesome, but the amount of attention and pressure and everything he would have been feeling this week would have been even, I think, a bit much for him. So probably good for Roczen to finish up second. And Eli Tomac, he just survived, man. Terrible, terrible, terrible performances at Anaheim 1 almost every time on a 450 in the past. It was a mud race, ripe for trouble. He stayed away from that. He got third. But the riders we have to talk about are Dean Wilson and Malcolm Stewart. Are you kidding me? Who had Dean Wilson and Malcolm Stewart running 1-2 in the betting pool halfway through the race? We can't even figure out how to classify them if they're even factory riders. I know that here goes, deep breath, Smart Top Bullfrog Spas, Moto Concepts, Honda team gets some support from Honda. I'm sure Mookie's bike is good, but I don't know if you could claim it's even factory supported. Maybe they would like to. The teams will often, instead of getting the love that they could get for saying we're a privateer effort that doesn't have all the good stuff, they would rather stroke the relationship, however small it might be, with the manufacturer. So teams like Moto Concepts will always overstate how much help they're getting because they want to sound friendly to Honda and say, oh, yeah, they've been awesome, giving us everything we want, even if they have 38 parts that are on Roczen's bike that they wish they could have. That's just how it works with all these teams. I've been there, and I've heard it a million times. So I'm sure Mookie's getting some help. He doesn't have a factory bike. Wilson was actually offered a factory bike when Zach Osborne went down, and he chose to stick with what he had. Now, I think they did give him some parts that he did want, but he did not want the full factory bike. Tellingly, he did not want the forks, the 52mm Works forks. He wanted to stick with the 48mm units that he had. I've heard that the Works 52s been a little bit tough in testing. That's just what I've kind of heard through the grapevine. So Dean wisely stuck with the forks he was used to, and look at how well it worked. So when you have two riders that are not factory riders in the traditional factory sense, leading the race and the most stacked race of the year with all the talent and most of the field is healthy, man, you know you're in for a doozy. Now, unfortunately for Mookie, he crashed, and unfortunately for Wilson, he got passed late by Tomac. Neither rider finished on the podium, but this is a win in so many ways. We know that these two riders can put in fast laps. Flying at the test track, fast in qualifying, awesome through one section here and there. That is something that Dean Wilson and Malcolm Stewart have always been able to do. But I think they needed to validate to themselves that they could really go to the line in an actual race, an actual full main event, look up and down the line and say, yeah, I got the stuff to battle any of these guys. I mean, Malcolm has never been in that position before in the 450 class. And Dean was, but geez, it's been like 5 years of just being destroyed with injuries. And I really wondered if they would ever be able to take the we can work with speed and actually work with it in the main. And now they have proven they can, and that is going to make them so dangerous. But as always, we have to take all the Anaheim 1 results with a grain of salt. Everyone is guessing on bike setups and things like that to a degree. There is a chance that Wilson and Mookie just happen to be comfortable. They were certainly underdogs coming in, too, so they were a little bit relaxed. Remember what Jeff Ward said earlier in this show. Sometimes the guy with less championship pressure is better off because he's not worried about screwing up the race and costing himself points. There are many reasons to think, hey, the favorites, they were under pressure. Everyone guesses on bike setup. Maybe Wilson and Mookie guessed right. Maybe Jason Anderson or someone like that guessed wrong, and when Anderson gets it figured out, he's going to be back on top. There are many reasons to not assume that this Anaheim 1 thing is not repeatable for those guys. But the confidence boost alone they're going to get is pretty awesome. And that's all you ever want, is to have more contenders, more riders to watch for, more riders in the hunt. Now, by the way, and I mentioned this on our race review podcast with Mathis and JT, I was a complete Dean Wilson doubter coming into this race, and I was a complete Justin Barcia doubter coming into last year's Anaheim 1, where Barcia led and got on the podium. And it's that whole mental thing that we were talking about. There's no doubt that Barcia and Wilson, those guys have talent, but it had been so long that I feel like in our position in the industry, hey, we could just say that everyone's going to be awesome all the time. But that's boring. That's not what you want. You want actual analysis, actual opinions. And sometimes opinions have to be negative. I just couldn't imagine that Wilson would be able to dig himself out of this much of a hole. 4 straight years of barely even racing. He got through 2017 clean, but 2015, 2016, 2018, disasters with injury. And I really didn't think that after all that, he could ratchet up the kind of confidence it takes to run at this level at the front. Could he be 95% of what he was? Yeah, maybe. But he needed to be 99.9. I didn't think he could get back there. And I was trying to be on the leading edge of, hey, there's a trend here. I don't know if we can work with speed Wilson is ever coming back. Well, at least for one night, it is. And that is awesome, and I'm so glad to be wrong, because to have more contenders is always a good thing. And obviously, the same thing with Barcia, man. To have Barcia being good again, to have Barcia as a championship threat, as a guy that can get podiums every week and win some races, to have factory Yamaha in the mix, this is superb. You can never have enough talent coming out of Anaheim 1. I'm glad that it wasn't just, Tomac leading every single lap and destroying dudes, or the same thing with Anderson, something like that. We've got ourselves a real mix-up heading into Glendale this weekend, and Supercross couldn't be better for it. Really excited, but remember, take everything that happens with Anaheim. If you're the race winner, you got to quickly get back down to earth and brush it aside. If you struggle, you have to quickly get back down to earth and brush it aside. That's the advice that you heard from these guys, Johnson, Carmichael, McGrath, O'Mara, Ward. They definitely know a thing or two about winning championships. So, as exciting as Anaheim is, the real dream in life is that we could carry that excitement, that unpredictability, fairly deep into the season. Historically, it doesn't happen. By about round 4 or 5, the championship picture gets pretty darn clear. I really hope that's not the case this year. Good luck to Dean Wilson, Malcolm Stewart, Justin Barcia, the riders who have not won this title before, to try to make this happen all year long. That'll be exciting. That's it for this edition of the Racer X Exhaust podcast. I'm headed to Glendale. This is all brought to you by Yoshimura, 63 years of four-stroke research and development. And the exhaust systems are made right here in the United States, in California. Check them out, yoshimura-rd.com. We have a new issue of Racer X rolling off the printer right now. The digital edition will be available, I believe, today, certainly by the weekend. It's got a lot of great feature stories in there. A Chad Reed one you definitely want to a Chad Reed one you want to read, as penned by Davey Coombs. And we'll see how Chad does this weekend. Yeah, incomplete grades. He and Hill down in the first turn in the mud. Who knows what you're going to get. Cooper Webb down in the first turn, came to 5th. If Webb had hole shot, maybe he would have won. If Webb had hole shot, maybe he would have got arm pump. Oh my God, I'm leading Anaheim 1. I haven't had a good race in a couple of years. It's one race. So exciting. So exciting. I was supposed to be done talking about it, and here I am talking about it again. So go to racerxonline.com/subscribe to get the magazine. Everything in there is different than what you'd see online. But racerxonline.com itself is good. So, you can check that out too. And racerxbrand.com has all the Racer X swag you want. Type in exhaust in all capital letters for a discount on your order. I think it's 20%. Once Brayton bought something, I completely lost track. I had like an out-of-body experience, and I really can't think straight. Justin Brayton rules. We'll see how he does in Glendale. It's just one race, man. He struggled in the main in the mud at Anaheim 1. It's just one race. He could win Glendale. I'm off track again. There's too many riders to talk about. Let's square it up. We'll see you in the desert in Arizona. Thanks for listening to the Racer X Exhaust Podcast. I'm Jason Weigandt.